19. Ode to a Nightingale by John Keats, 1795 to 1821. My heart aches and a drowsy numbness pains. My senses dew of hemlock I drunk, or emptied some dull opiate through the drains. My minute passed, and leaf words had sunk. 'Tis not through envy of thy happy lot, but being too happy in thine happiness, that thou let me get dried of the trees, and some melodious plot. Of beech and green, shadows numberless, singest of summer, full-throated eves. Oh, for a draught of vintage that hath been, cool the long age in a deep-dilled earth, tasting of flora and a country green, dance and provincial songs and sunburnt mirth. Oh, for a beaker full of the warm south, full of the true and of blushful poverty, with beaded bubbles blinking at the brim, and purple-stained mouth, that I might drink, and leave the world unseen, and with thee fade away to the forest inn, fade far away, dissolve, and quite forget what thou among the leaves hast never known, the weariness, the fever, and the fret. Here, where men sit and hear each other groan, or pollies shake a few sad, whispered hairs, where youth grows pale, and spectre thin and dies, or what to think is to be full of sorrow, and leaden eye despairs, where beauty cannot keep her lustrous eyes, or no love pineth them beyond tomorrow. Away, away, for I will fly to thee, not charioted by Bacchus and his pards, but on the viewless wings of poesy, though the dull brain perplexes and retires already with thee tender as the night. And happily the queen moon is on her throne, clustered round by all her starry face, but here there is no light, save what from heaven is with the breezes blown, through verdurous glooms and winding mossy ways. I cannot see what flowers are at my feet, not what soft incense hangs upon the boughs, but in embalmed darkness guessy sweet, wherewith this seasonable month endows the grass, the thicket, and the fruit tree wild, like hawthorn, and the pastoral eglantine, fast fading violets covered up in leaves, and mid-May's eldest child, the cunning musk grows full of dewy wine, the murmur is soft of flying in summer eves. Darkling listen in many time, I've been half in love with each breath, call them soft names, and many a muse round, singing through the ear my quiet breath. Now more than ever seems it wretched to die, that cease upon the midnight with no pain, while thou art flowing forth thy soul abroad in such an ecstasy. Still wouldst thou sing, and I have ears in vain, till thy high brook may come aside. Thou wast not born for death, O mortal bird, no 100 generations tread thee down. The voice I hear this passing night was heard in ancient days by emperor and cloud. Perhaps the self-same song that found a path through the sad heart of Ruth when, sick for home, she stood in tears amid the ailing corn, the same that ofttimes hath turned magic casements opening on the foam of perilous seas and fairy lands forlorn. Forlorn, the very words, like a bell, to toll me back from thee to my sole self. Adieu, the fancy cannot cheat so well as she is famed to do, deceiving health. Adieu, do thy plaintive anthem fade past the new meadows, over the still stream, up the hillside, and now 'tis very deep, and the next valley glades. Was that a vision, or waking dream? Fled that music, till I wake or sleep. 20. I Remember, by Thomas Hood, 1899 to 1945. I remember, the house where I was born, the little window where the sun came peeping in at morn. He never came awake too soon, nor brought a long day, but now I often wish the night had borne my breath away. I remember, the roses red and white, the violets and the lily cups, those flowers made of light, the lilacs where the robin built and worm brother sit, the laburnum on his birthday. The tree is living yet. I remember where I was used to swing, and thought the air must rush as fresh to swallows on the wing. My spirit flew in feathers in, it is so heavy now, and summer pools could hardly cool the fever on my brow. I remember the fir trees dark and high. I used to think their slender tops were close against the sky. It was a childish ignorance, but not as little joy, to know I'm farther off in heaven than when I was a boy. 22. Sonnets from the Portuguese, 14, by Elizabeth Barrett Browning, 1806 to 1861. If thou must love me, let it be for naught, except for love's sake only. Do not say, I love her for her smile, her look, her way of speaking gently, for a trick of thought that falls on all of mine, and certes brought a sense of pleasant ease on such a day. For these things in themselves, beloved, may be changed, or changed for thee, and love so wrought, may be unwrought so. Neither love me for thine own dear pities wiped my cheeks dry. A creature might forget to weep, who bore thy comfort long, and lose thy love thereby. But love me for love's sake, that evermore thou mayest live on through love's eternity. 22. A Psalm of Life, by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, 1807 to 1882. Tell me not, in mournful numbers, life is but an empty dream, for the soul is dead that slumbers, and things are not what they seem. Life is real, life is earnest, and the grave is not a skull. Dust thou art, to dust returnest, was not spoken of the soul. Not enjoyment and not sorrow is our destined end or way, but to act that each tomorrow finds us farther than today. Art is long and time is fleeting, and our hearts, so stout and brave, still like muffled drums are beating funeral marches to the grave. In the world's broad field of battle, in the bivouac of life, be not like dumb driven cattle, be a hero in the strife. Trust no future, however pleasant, let the dead past bury its dead, act, and the living present, heart within and guide our head. Lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime, and departing leave behind us footprints on the sands of time. Footprints that, perhaps another, telling our life's solemn made, a forlorn and shipwrecked brother, seeing shall make heart again. Let us then be up and doing, for the heart for any fate, still achieving, still pursuing, learn to labor and to wait. 23. Address at Gettysburg, by Abraham Lincoln, 1809 to 1865. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth from this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men were created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation, so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. They are met in a great battlefield at war. They have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this, but in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men living and dead who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add, detract, or to detract. The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us to live in, rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us. From these honored dead, we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, and that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. 24. A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, 1812 to 1870. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. We had everything before us, we had nothing before us. We were all going direct to heaven, we were all going direct the other way. And in short, the period was so far like the present period that some of its noisiest authorities insisted on its being received for good or for evil, and a superlative degree of comparison only. 25. I Died for Beauty by Emily Dickinson, 1830 to 1886. I died for beauty, but was scarce adjusted in the tomb. When one who died for truthful thing in an adjoining room, he questioned softly, while veiled for beauty, I replied, and I for truth, and through a one, we brethren are, he said. And so, as kinsmen met at night, we talked between the rooms, until the moss had reached our lips, and covered up our names. 26. I Look Into My Glass by Thomas Hardy, 1840 to 1928. I look into my glass, and feel my wasting skin, and say, what God it came to pass? My heart had shrunk as thin. But then I, undistressed, my heart's grown cold to me, could only wait my endless rest with equanimity. A time to make me grieve, heart steels, its its prey to bide, and shakes this fragile frame at ease with frolics of new tide. 27. Stray Birds by Rabindranath Tagore, 1861 to 1941. Stray birds of summer come to my window to sing and fly away, and yellow leaves of autumn which have no songs flutter and fall from the sun. If you shed tears when you miss the sun, you also miss the stars. What language, Anansi? The language of eternal question. What language is thy answer, O sky? The language of eternal silence. Listen, my heart, to the whispers of the world with which it makes love to you. They fell as shadows before them who carry their lantern on their back. That I exist is a perpetual surprise, which is life. His own warnings are no surprise to the god. The bird wishes it were a cloud wishes it were a bird. Do not blame your food because you have no appetite. The fish in the water are silent. The animal on the earth is noisy. The bird in the air is singing. But man is in him, the silence of the sea, the noise of the earth, and the music of the air. God finds himself by creating. Life is given to us. We earn it by giving it. We come nearest to the great when we are great in humanity. Tiny grass. Your steps are small, but you possess the earth under your tread. The infant flower opens its bud and cries, dear world, please do not fade. God grows weary of great kingdom, but never of little flowers. We read the world long and see that it deceives us. Here's a big drop of dew under the lotus leaf, and the smaller one on its upper side, so the dewdrop to the lake. Be still, my heart, these great trees are prayers. They don't linger to gather flowers to keep them, but walk on, for flowers will keep themselves, blooming all your way. 28. Appeal to America by Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, 1869 to 1948. In my opinion, the Indian struggle for freedom bears its consequences, not only upon Indian England, but upon the whole world. It contains 1/5 of the human race. It represents one of the most ancient civilizations. It has traditions handed down for tens of thousands of years, some of which, to the astonishment of the world, remain intact. No doubt the ravages of time have affected the purity of that civilization, as it have that of many other cultures and many institutions. If India is to revive the glory of her ancient past, she can only do so when she attains her freedom. She attains her freedom. The reason for the struggle, having drawn the attention of the world, I know, does not lie in the fact that we Indians are fighting for our liberty, but in the fact that the means adopted by us for attaining that liberty are unique, and, as far as history shows us, have not been adopted by any other people of whom we have any record. The means adopted are not violence, not bloodshed, not diplomacy, as one understands it nowadays, but they're purely and simply truth and non-violence. No wonder that attention of the world is directed toward this attempt to lead a successful, bloodless revolution. Other two nations have fought in the manner of the brute. They wreaked vengeance on those whom they considered to be their enemies. We find, in searching national anthems adopted by great nations, that they contain imprecations upon a so-called enemy. They vow destruction, and have not hesitated to take the name of God, and seek divine assistance for the destruction of the enemy. We, in India, have endeavored to reverse the process. We feel that the law that governs brute creation is not the law that regards the human race. That law is inconsistent with human dignity. I, personally, would wait, if need be, for ages, rather than seek to attain the freedom of my country through bloody means. I feel in the innermost of my heart, after a political extending over an unbroken period of close upon 35 years, that the world is sick on the death of blood spilling. The world is seeking a way out, and I flatter myself with the belief that perhaps it will be the privilege of the ancient land of India to show the way out to the hungering world. 29. Chinese and Western Civilization Contrasted by Bertrand Russell, 1872 to 1970. There is at present in China a close contact between our civilization and that which is native to the Celestial Empire. It is still a doubtful question whether this contact will breed a new civilization better than either of its parents, or whether it will merely destroy the native culture and replace it by that of America. Contacts between different civilizations have often in the past proved to be landmarks in human progress. Greece learned from Egypt, Rome from Greece. Rome from Greece. The Arabs from the Roman Empire. Medieval Europe from the Arabs. And Renaissance Europe from the Byzantines. In many of these cases, the pupils proved better than their masters. In the case of China, if we regard the Chinese as the pupils, this may be the case again. In fact, we have quite as much to learn from them as they from us, but there's far less chance of our learning it. If I treat the Chinese as their pupils, rather than vice versa, it is only because I fear we are unteachable. Western Europe and America have a practically homogeneous mental life, which I should trace to three sources. 1. Greek culture. 2. Jewish religion and ethics. 3. Modern industrialism, which itself is an outcome of modern science. We may take Plato, the Old Testament, and Galileo as representing these three elements, which have remained singularly separable down to the present day. From the Greeks, we derive literature and the arts, philosophy, and pure mathematics, also the more advanced portions of our social outlook. From the Jews, we derive fanatical belief, which its friends call faith, moral fervor, with the conception of sin, religious intolerance, and some part of our nationalism. From science, as applied in industrialism, we derive power, and a sense of power, the belief that we're gods and may justly be the arbiters of life and death for unscientific races. We derive also the empirical method for which almost all real knowledge has been acquired. These three elements, I think, account for most of our mentality. When I went to China, I went to teach, but every day that I stayed, I thought less of what I had to teach them and more of what I had to learn from them. Among Europeans who had lived a long time in China, I found this attitude not uncommon. But among those who stay as short or who go only to make money, it is sadly rare. It is rare because the Chinese do not excel in the things we really value: military prowess and industrial enterprise. But those who value wisdom or beauty or even a simple enjoyment of life will find more of these things in China than in the distracted and turbulent West, and will be happy to live where such things are valued. I wish I could hope that China, in return for our scientific knowledge, might give us something of a large tolerance and contemplative peace of mind. 30. The Ideal Democracy by Karl L. Becker, 1873 to 1945. All human institutions, we're told, have their ideal forms laid away in heaven, and we do not need to be told that the actual institutions conform but indifferently to these ideal counterparts. It will be possible then to define democracy either in terms of the ideal or in terms of the real form, to define it as government of the people, by the people, for the people, or to define it as government of the people by the politicians, for whatever pressure groups can get their interests taken care of. But as a historian, I'm naturally disposed to be satisfied with the meaning which, in the history of politics, men have commonly attributed to the word. A meaning, needless to say, which derives partly from the experience and partly from the aspirations of mankind. So regarded, the term democracy refers primarily to a form of government, and it has always meant government by the many, as opposed to government by the one. Government by the people, as opposed to government by a tyrant, a dictator, or an absolute monarch. This is the most general meaning of the word, as men have commonly understood it. 31. The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost, 1874 to 1963. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and looked on one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. And took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because I was grassy and wanted to wear it, the while for the other passenger had one them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, and leaves no steps had trod in luck. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how wayly I'm away, I doubted if I should ever come back. I should be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, the roads diverged in a wooded nigh. I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. 32. Fire and Ice by Robert Frost, 1874 to 1963. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. From what I tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction ice is ultimate and would suffice. 33. Report on a Miracle of Dunkirk by Winston Churchill, 1874 to 1965. I have myself full confidence that if all do their duty, if nothing is neglected, and if the best arrangements are made as they are being made, we shall prove ourselves once again able to defend our island home, to ride out the storm of war, and to outlive the madness of tyranny, if necessary for years, if necessary alone. At any rate, that is what we are going to try to do. That is the resolve of His Majesty's government. That is the will of Parliament and the nation. That is the resolve of His Majesty's government. That is the will of Parliament and the nation. '33. Report on a Miracle of Dunkirk by Winston Churchill, 1874 to 1965. I have myself full confidence that if all do their duty, if nothing is neglected, and if the best arrangements are made as they are being made, we shall prove ourselves once again able to defend our island home, to ride out the storm of war, and to outlive the menace of tyranny, if necessary for years, if necessary alone. At any rate, that is what we are going to try to do. That is the will of His Majesty's government. That is the will of Parliament and the nation. The British Empire and the French Republic, linked together in their cause and their need, will defend to the death their needed soil, aiding each other like good comrades to the utmost of their strength. Even though large tracts of Europe and many old and famous states have fallen or may fall into the grip of the Gestapo, and all the odious apparatus of Nazi rule, we shall not flag or fail. We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength and ear. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight in the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. And even if, which I do not for a moment believe, this island or a large part of it were subjugated and starving, then our empire beyond the seas, armed and guarded by the British fleet, would carry on the struggle until, in God's good time, the New World, with all its power and might, steps forth to the rescue and the liberation of the old. 34. I resolved to become a jungle doctor by Albert Schweitzer, 1875 to 1965. On October 13, 1905, a Friday, I dropped into a letter box in the Avenue de la Grande Army in Paris, letters to my parents and to some of my most intimate acquaintances, telling them that at the beginning of the winter term I should enter myself as a medical student, in order to go later on to Equatorial Africa as a doctor. The plan, which I meant now to put into execution, had been in my mind for a long time. Having been conceived so long ago as my student days, it struck me as incomprehensible that I should be allowed to lead such a happy life, while I saw so many people around me wrestling with care and suffering. Even at school I felt stirred, whenever I got a glimpse of the miserable home surroundings of some of my schoolfellows, and compared them with the absolutely ideal conditions in which we children of the parsonage at Goonsbach lived, while at the university and enjoying the happiness of being able to study and even to produce some results in science and art. I cannot help thinking continually of others who deny that happiness by their material circumstances or their health. Then, one brilliant summer morning, I settled with myself before I got up that I would consider myself justified in living till I was 30 for science and art, in order to go later on in order to devote myself from that time forward to the direct service of humanity. Many times already had I tried to settle what meaning lay hidden for me, and a saying of Jesus: "Whosoever would save his life shall lose it, and whosoever would save his life and whosoever would lose his life for my sake and the gospel's shall save it." Now the answer is found, in addition to the outward and now the inward happiness. 35. Fog by Carl Sandburg, 1878 to 1967. The fog comes on Little Cat Peak. It sits looking over harbor and city on silent contours, and then moves on. 36. The Decline of the West by Oswald Spengler, 1880 to 1936. I see in place of that empty figment of one linear history, which can only be kept up by shutting one's eyes to the overwhelming multitude of the facts, the drama of a number of mighty cultures, each springing with primitive strength from the soil of a mother region, to which it remains firmly bound throughout its whole life cycle. Each having its material, and its mankind, and its own image, each having its own ideas, its own passion, its own life, will, and feeling, its own death. Here indeed are colors, lights, movements, that no intellectual eyes have discovered. Here are cultures, peoples, languages, truths, gods, landscapes, blooming age as the oaks and the stone pines, blossoms, twigs, and leaves, but there's no aging in mankind. Each culture has its own possibilities, its own expression, which arise, ripen, decay, and never return. There is not one sculpture, one painting, one mathematics, one physics, but many, each in its deepest essence different from the others, each limited in duration and self-contained, just as each species of plant has its peculiar blossom or fruit, its special type of growth and decline. These cultures, sublimated life essences, grow at the same superb aimlessness as the flowers of the field. They belong, like the plants and the animals, to the living nature of Goethe, and not to the dead nature of Newton. I see world history as a picture of endless formations and transformations, the marvelous, waxing and waning organic forms. The professional historian, on the contrary, sees it as a sort of tapeworm, industriously adding on to itself one epoch after another. This, the inward and outward fulfillment, the finality that awaits every living culture, is the purport of all historic declines, amongst them the decline of the classical, which we know so well and fully, and another decline, entirely comparable to an important generation, which will occupy the first centuries of the coming millennium, but is heralded already and sensible in and around us today, the decline of the West. Every culture passes through the age phases of the individual man. Each has its childhood, youth, manhood, and old age. 37. General MacArthur's Prayer for His Son, by Douglas MacArthur, 1880 to 1964. Build me a son, O Lord, who will be strong enough to know when he's weak, and brave enough to face himself when he's afraid. One who will be proud and unbending in honest defeat, and humble and gentle in victory. Build me a son whose wishes will not take the place of deeds. A son who will know thee, and that to know himself is the foundation stone of knowledge. Lead him, I pray, not in the path of ease and comfort, but under the stress and spur of difficulty and challenge. So here let him learn to stand up in the storm. Here let him learn compassion when it will fail. The only son his heart will be clear, whose goal will be high. A son will master himself before he seeks to master other men, and will reach into the future, yet never forget the past. And after all these things are his, I pray, enough of a sense of humor, so that he may always be serious, yet never take himself too seriously. Give him humility, so that he may always remember the simplicity of true greatness, the open mind of true wisdom, and the meekness of true strength. Then I, as father, will dare to whisper, I have not lived in vain. 38. 3 Days of Sea, by Helen Keller, 1880 to 1968. How is it possible, I ask myself, to walk for an hour through the woods and see nothing worthy of note? I cannot see but hundreds of things to interest me from mere touch. I feel a delicate symmetry of leaf. I pass my hands lovingly by the smooth skin of a silver birch, or the rough, shaggy bark of a pine. In the spring, I touch the branches of trees, hopefully in search of a bud, the first sign of awakening nature after her winter sleep. I feel the delightful, velvety texture of a flower, and discover its remarkable convolutions, and something of the miracle nature is revealed to me. At times, my heart, something of the miracle nature is revealed to me. I'm delighted to have. To me, in the spring, I touch the branches of trees, hopefully in search of a bud, the first sign of awakening nature after a winter's sleep. I feel the delightful, velvety texture of a flower, and discover its remarkable convolutions, and something of the miracle of nature is revealed to me. Occasionally, if I am very fortunate, I place my hand gently on a small tree, and feel the happy quiver of a bird in full song. I'm delighted to have the cool waters of a brook rush through my open fingers. To me, a lush carpet of pine needles or spongy grass is more welcome than the most luxurious Persian rug. To me, the pageant of seasons is a thrilling, unending drama. the action which streams to my fingertips. At times, my heart cries out with longing to see all these things. If I can get so much pleasure from mere touch, how much more beauty must be revealed by sight? Yet, those of eyes apparently see little. The panorama of color and action fills the world with taken for granted. It is human, perhaps, to appreciate little, that which we have, and to long for that which we have not. But it is a great pity that in the world of light, the gift of sight is used only as a mere convenience, rather than as an inspiring fullness to life. 39. Four Freedoms by Franklin D. Roosevelt, 1882 to 1945. In the future days, what we seek to make secure, we look forward to a world founded upon four essential human freedoms. The first is freedom of speech and expression everywhere in the world. The second is freedom of every person to worship God in its own way everywhere in the world. The third is freedom from want, which translated into world terms means economic understandings, which will secure to every nation a healthy peacetime life for its inhabitants everywhere in the world. The fourth is freedom from fear, which translated into world terms means a worldwide reduction of armaments to such a point and in such a thorough fashion that no nation will be in a position to commit an act of physical aggression against any neighbor anywhere in the world. That is the illusion of the distant millennium. It is a definite basis for a kind of world attainable in our own time generation. That kind of world is the very antithesis of the so-called New Order of Tyranny, which the dictators seek to create a crash or bomb. To that new order we oppose the greater conception, the moral order. A good society is able to face schemes of world domination and foreign revolutions, alike without fear. Since the beginning of our American history, we have been engaged in change, and a perpetual peaceful revolution. A revolution which goes on steadily, quietly adjusting itself to changing conditions, without the concentration camp or the quicklime the ditch. The world order which we seek is the cooperation of free countries, working together in a friendly, civilized society. This nation has placed its destiny in the hands and heads and hearts of its millions of free men and women, and has faith and freedom under the guidance of God. Freedom means the supremacy of human rights everywhere. Our support goes to those who struggle to gain those rights or keep them. Our strength is in our unity of purpose. To that high concept there can be no end, save victory. 40. On Children by Khalil Gibran, 1883 to 1931. And the woman who held a babe against her bosom said, "Speak to us of children." And he said, "Your children are not children. They are sons and daughters of life's flying toward itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them their love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life is not backward or carries with yesterday. Hear the bows from which your children and living arrows are sent forth. The archer sees a mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be with lens, for even as he loved the arrow that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable. 41. I Believe by Albert Einstein, 1879 to 1955. Strange is our situation here upon earth. Each of us comes for a short visit, not knowing why, yet sometimes seeming to divine a purpose. From the standpoint of daily life, however, there is one thing we do know, that man is here for the sake of other men, and above all, for those upon whose smile and well-being their own happiness depends, and also for the countless unknown souls with whose fate we're connected by a bond of sympathy. Many times a day, I realize how much my own outer and inner life is built upon a way with my fellow men, both living and dead, and how earnestly I must exert myself in order to give in return as much as I have received. My peace of mind is often troubled by the depressing sense that I have borrowed too heavily from the works of other men. I do not believe we can have any freedom at all, in a philosophical sense, for we act not only under external compulsion, but also by inner necessity. Schopenhauer saying, "A man can surely do what he wills to do, but he cannot determine what he wills." impressed itself upon me in youth, and has always consoled me when I witnessed or suffer life's hardships. This conviction is a perpetual breeder of tolerance, but it does not allow us to take ourselves or others too seriously. It makes for a sense of humor, to ponder interminably over the reason for one's own existence, or the meaning of life in general seems to me, from an objective point of view, to be sheer folly. And yet everyone holds certain ideals by which guides his aspiration and his judgment. The ideals, which have always shown before me and fill me with the joy of living, are goodness, beauty, and truth. To make a goal of comfort or happiness has never appealed to me. A system of ethics built on this basis would be sufficient only for a herd of cattle. The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. It is the source of all true art and science. He to whom this emotion is a stranger, who can no longer pause to wonder and stand wrapped in awe, is as good as dead. His eyes are closed. The insight into the mystery of life, coupled with the fear, has also given rise to religion. You know that what is impenetrable to us really exists, manifesting itself as the highest wisdom and the most radiant beauty, which our dull faculties can comprehend only in their most primitive form. This knowledge, this feeling, is at the center of true religiousness. In this sense, and in this sense only, I belong to the race of devoutly religious men. 42. The Old Man and the Sea, by Ernest Hemingway, 1899 to 1961. Good luck, old man. Good luck, the old man said. He fitted the rope lashings of the oars on a set of fold pans, and, leaning forward against the thrust of the blades in the water, he began to row out of the harbor in the dark. There were other boats from the other beaches, and the old man going out to sea, as the old man heard the dip and push of their oars, even though he could not see them. Now, the moon was below the hills. Sometimes someone would speak in a boat, but most of the boats are sunk, except for the tip of the oars. The old man, they spread apart after they were out of the mouth of the harbor, and each one headed for the part of the ocean where he hoped to find fish. The old man knew he was one far out, and he left the smell of the land behind, and rowed out into the clean early morning smell of the ocean. In the dark, the old man could feel the morning coming, and as he rowed, he heard the trembling sound as flying fish left the water, and the hissing that their stiff-set legs made as they soared away in the darkness. He was very fond of flying fish, as they were his principal friends in the ocean. He was sorry for the birds, especially the small, delicate, dark terns that are always flying and looking, almost never finding any fun. The birds have a harder life than we do, except for the robber birds and the heavy strong ones. Why did they make birds so fine? Why did they make birds so fine as those sea swallows? He was sorry for the birds, especially the small, delicate, dark terns who were always flying and looking almost never find any fun. Why did they make birds so fine, so delicate and fine as those sea swallows, when the ocean would be so cruel? She is kind and very beautiful, but she can be so cruel, and it comes so suddenly. And such birds that fly, dipping and hunting, with their small, sad voices, are made too delicately for the sea. 43. Gone with the Wind, by Margaret Mitchell, 1900 to 1949. The sun was now below the horizon, and the red glow at the rim of the world faded into pink. The sky above turned slowly from azure to the delicate blue-green of a robin's egg, and the unearthly stillness of rural twilight came stealthily down about her. Shadowy dimness crept over the countryside. The red furrows in the gashed red road lashed their magical blood color, and became plain brown earth. Across the road and the pasture, the horses, mules, and cows stood quietly with heads over the split rail fence, waiting to be driven to the stables and supper. They did not like the dark shade of the thickets hedging the pasture creek, and they twitched their ears at scarlet, as if appreciative of human companionship. And a strange half-light, the tall pines of the river swamp, so warmly green in the sunshine, or black against the pastel sky, an impenetrable row of black giants hiding the slow yellow water at their feet. On a hill across the river, the tall white chimneys of the Wilkes home faded gradually into the darkness of the thick oaks surrounding them, and only far-off pinpoints of summerland showed that a house was here. The warm, damp balminess of spring accompanied so sweetly, with the moist smells of new-plowed earth and all the fresh green things pushing up to the ear. Sunset and spring and new-fledged greenery were no miracle of scarlet. Their beauty she accepted as casually as the air she breathed and the water she drank, for she had never consciously seen beauty in anything women's faces, horses, silk dresses, and like tangible things. Yet, the serene half-lake over Paris' well-kept acres brought a measure of quiet to her disturbed mind. She loved this land so much without even knowing she loved it. Loved it as she loved her mother's face under the lamp at prayer time. 44. The Art of Scientific Investigation by William I. B. Beveridge, 1908 to 2006. Albert Einstein distinguishes three types of research workers: those who take up science because it offers them an opportunity to exercise their particular talents, and who excel in it as an athlete enjoys exercising his prowess; those who regard it as a means of livelihood, and who, but for circumstances, might have become successful businessmen; and lastly, the true devotees, who are rare but make a contribution. The true devotees, who are rare but make a contribution out of proportion to the numbers. And lastly, the true devotees, who are rare but make a contribution. Those who regard it as a means of livelihood, and who, but for circumstances, might have become successful businessmen. And lastly, the true devotees, who are rare but make a contribution to knowledge out of proportion to the numbers. Some psychologists consider that man's best work is usually done under adversity, and that mental stress and even physical pain may act as a mental stimulant. Many prominent men have suffered from psychological troubles and various difficulties, but for which perhaps they never have put forth the effort required to excel. The scientist seldom gets a large monetary reward for his labors, so he should be freely granted any just fame arising from his work. But the greatest reward is the thrill of discovery. As many scientists attest, it is one of the greatest joys that life has to offer. It gives a tremendous emotional uplift and great sense of well-being and satisfaction. Not only factual discoveries, but a sudden realization of a generalization can give you the same feeling of exhilaration. As Prince Kropotkin wrote, he who has once in his life experienced this joy of scientific creation will never forget it. 45. Inaugural Address by John F. Kennedy, 1917 to 1963. In your hands, my fellow citizens, more than in mine, will rest the final success or failure of our course. Since this country was founded, each generation of Americans has been summoned to give testimony to its national loyalty. The graves of young Americans who answered the call of service around the globe. Now the trumpet summons us again, not as a call to bear arms, the arms we need, not as a call to battle, when battle we are, but a call to bear the burden of a long twilight struggle, year in and year out. Rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, a struggle against the common enemies of man. Tyranny, poverty, disease, and war itself can only forge against its enemies a grand and global alliance. North and south, east and west, that can assure a more fruitful life for all mankind. Will you join in a historic effort? In the long history of the world, only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. I do not shrink from this responsibility and welcome it. I do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any of the people or any other generation. The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country in all service, and the glow from that fire can truly light the world. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man. Finally, whether you're citizens of America or citizens of the world, ask of us the same high standards of strength and sacrifice which we ask of you. With a good conscience, our only sure reward, with history, the final judge of our deeds, let us go forth to lead the line live, asking his blessing and his help, but knowing that here on earth, God's work must truly be our own. 46. A Theory of Justice by John Rawls, 1921 to 2002. Justice is the first virtue of social institutions, as truth is a system of thought. A theory, however elegant and economical, must be rejected or revised if it is untrue. Likewise, laws and institutions, no matter how efficient and well arranged, must be reformed or abolished if they are unjust. Each person possesses an inviolability founded on justice that even the welfare of society as a whole cannot override. For this reason, justice denies that the loss of freedom for some is made right by a greater good shared by others. It does not allow that the sacrifices imposed on a few are outweighed by the larger sum of advantages enjoyed by many. Therefore, in a just society, the liberties of equal citizenship are taken as settled. The rights secured by justice are not subject to political bargaining or to the calculus of social interests. The only thing that permits us to acquiesce in an erroneous theory is the lack of a better one. Analogously, an injustice is tolerable only when it is necessary to avoid an even greater injustice. Being first virtues of human activities, truth and justice are uncompromising. These propositions seem to express our intuitive conviction of the primacy of justice. No doubt they're expressed too strongly. In any event, I wish to inquire whether these contentions or others similar to them are sound, and if so, how they can be accounted for. To this end, it is necessary to work out a theory of justice, in the light of which these assertions can be interpreted and assessed. 47. I Have a Dream by Martin Luther King, 1929 to 1968. I say to you today, my friends, so even though I face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even a state of Mississippi, a desert state, sweltering with heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, and rough places will be made plain, and crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. 48. Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Richard Bach, born 1936. It was morning, and the new sun sparkled gold across the ripples of a gentle sea. A mile from shore, a fishing boat chummed the water, and hissing. A mile from shore, a fishing boat chummed the water, and the word for breakfast flock flashed through the ear, till a crowd of 1,000 seagulls came to dodge and fight for bits of food. It was another busy day beginning. But we off alone, out by himself, beyond the boat and shore. Jonathan Livingston Seagull was practicing. 100 feet in the sky, he lowered his wing feet, lifted his beak, and strained to hold a painful, hard, twisting curve through his wings. The curve meant that he would fly slowly, and now he slowed until the wind was a whisper in his face, till the ocean stood still beneath him. He narrowed his eyes in fierce concentration. Held his breath, forced 1 single more inch of curve. Then his feathers ruffled. He stalled and fell. Seagulls, as you know, never falter, never stall. To stall in the air is furthering disgrace, and it is dishonor. But Jonathan Livingston Seagull, unashamed, stretching his wings, again that trembling, hard curve, slowing, and stalling once more, was no ordinary bird. Most gulls don't bother to learn more than the simplest facts of flight. How to get from shore to food and back again. And stalling once more was no ordinary bird. Most gulls don't bother to learn more than the simplest facts of flight. How to get from shore to food and back again. For most gulls, it's not flying that mattered, but eating. For this gull, though, it was not eating that mattered, but flight. More than anything else, Jonathan Livingston Seagull loved to fly. This kind of thinking he found is not to make oneself popular with other birds. Even his parents were dismayed, as Jonathan spent holidays alone, making hundreds of low-level glides, experimenting. 49. Lyrics. 1. Morning is broken. Morning is broken. Like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken. like the first bird. Praise for them singing, praise for them morning, praise for them springing, fresh from the world. Sweet the rain new fall, sunlight from heaven, like the first dewfall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the garden, sprouting completeness, where his feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born in the one light, Eden's our play. Praise this elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day. 2. Idolize. Idolize, idolize. Every morning you greet me. Small and white, clean and right. You look happy to meet me. Blossom of snow, may bloom and grow forever. Idolize, idolize. Bless my homeland forever. 3. Sunrise, sunset. Is this the little girl I carried? Is this the little boy at play? I don't remember growing older. When did they? When did she get to be a beauty? When did he grow to be so tall? Was it yesterday when they were small? Sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset. Swiftly flow the days. Seedlings turn over like the sunflowers, blossoming even as we gaze. Sunrise, sunset, swiftly fly the years. One season following another, laden with happiness and tears. What words of wisdom can I give them? How can I help to ease their way? Now they must learn from one another day by day. They look so natural together. They look so natural together, just like two newlyweds should be. And all kind of peace instead for me. 4. Silver thuds among the gold. Darling, I'm growing old. Silver thuds among the gold. Shine upon my brow today. Life is fading fast away. But my darling, you will be always young and fair to me. Yes, my darling, you will be always young and fair to me. When your hair is silver white and your cheeks long bright, with roses of the May, I'll kiss your lips and say, oh, my darling, mine alone. Alone you have never overgrown. Yes, my darling, mine alone. Alone you have never overgrown. 5. To serve with love. Those schoolgirl days of telling tales and biting nails are gone. But in my mind, I know that they will still live on and on. But how do they sound? Who's taken you from crayons to perfume? It isn't easy, but I'll try. If you want in the sky ahead, right across the sky letters that soar 1,000 feet high, to serve with love. And the time has come for closing books, and longless books must end. And as I leave, I know that I am leaving my best friend, a friend who tell me right from wrong and weak from strong. That's a lot to learn. What can I give you in return? If you want the moonlight, try on and make a start, but I'd rather you let me give my heart to serve with love.